The movie 300 Spartans sparked public interest in the Spartans and spawned many fans around the world. It portrayed the Spartans as tough warriors of the ancient world who never gave up, fought with bare skin, and were noble souls standing up to an oppressive enemy. Although historians have criticized the film for its depiction of the Persians, they have paid little attention to the portrayal of the Spartans. Generations of literature, poems, and eulogies have created a familiar image of the Spartans as an invincible military force. After World War II, scholars avoided studying the ancient Spartans for decades because of Nazi interest in the subject. Research on the Spartans became a taboo topic. However, recent discoveries and careful analysis of the actual accounts of ancient Greek historians show that although the Spartans were a formidable military force, they were not the mythological warriors that popular culture portrays them to be. We can trace the origins of their legendary fighting abilities to centuries of propaganda about the Battle of Thermopylae, which we learn was not as important as we think. The Spartans were masters of politics, not battle. They relied on their allies and lived in a repressive society built on slavery. It's time to rethink the image of the Spartan warrior, whose contemporaries were not as feared as we think. The Spartans were a well-organized fighting force. However, much of their success was due to teamwork and tactical acumen rather than outstanding heroism. In popular culture, the Spartans are portrayed as brave warriors capable of fighting any army. But this was not always the case. The Spartans were stronger at political maneuvering than other Greek states, which helped them establish hegemony in Greece. It wasn't their military prowess that allowed them to do so. According to Herodotus, Sparta faced the city-state of Argos in 546 BC to avoid casualties. Each side engaged 300 of their best fighters. We know this battle as the Battle of the 300 Champions. At the end of the battle, only one Spartan and two Argosians survived. This shows that other Greeks were able to compete with the Spartans and give them a money advantage. Their legendary fighting abilities were a result of Spartan propaganda related to the Battle of Thermopylae. But it is important to note that there were other Greeks who fought to the last man at the Battle of Thermopylae and were not fully recognized. The Spartans were more concerned with suppressing slave revolts than with large-scale military conquests. The Spartans won some remarkable victories over fellow Greeks and Persians and lost to them in equal measure. After the Peloponnesian War, the Spartans broke the dominance of Athens. The Spartans won the Peloponnesian War, but the surrender of the Spartan army at the Battle of Sphacteria in 425 BC suggests that the Spartans were not always eager to fight to the last man and definitely did not believe in the principle of never surrender. Despite Athens' defeat in the Peloponnesian War, Sparta was defeated in the Corinthian War a decade later, and the Thebans ended their dominance during the Theban-Spartan War. A smaller Theban force destroyed a much larger Spartan force at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, killing 1,000 elite Spartan warriors, 3 times the casualties suffered at Thermopylae. This destroyed the Spartans' reputation as invincible. It could be argued that the myth of the invincible Spartan warrior developed much later through literature, but the major modern powers, the Greek city-states and the Persians, never considered the Spartans special. We can attribute the entire legend of the Spartan warriors to one romanticized encounter, the Battle of Thermopylae. Thermopylae has become synonymous with heroism, with countless poems, honors, and stories dedicated to Leonidas and his men who died in battle refusing to surrender. The actual conflict was pointless because the Persians had achieved their goals. And the final heroic battle was not a Spartan achievement. The Greeks fought against the Persians with 7,000 men. 300 Spartans, 700 Thespians, 400 Thebans, 900 Ilots, Spartan slaves, and 1,000 Phocians refused to withdraw from the battle. This was not 300 Spartans fighting their last battle against 100,000 Persians. 3,000 Greeks is a better estimate. So, how did the Spartans come to dominate the narrative? Although many modern historians criticize Herodotus for honoring the Spartans, and he enthusiastically praised King Leonidas, A deeper review of his work reveals that he gave credit to all Greek warriors, even the islets. Leonidas, the Spartan king, led the entire Greek army. The Spartans excelled at teamwork and coordination, and their men were born leaders. As a result, the top man received much praise for his defense. The war itself was not as significant as we now think. It was neither a moral victory for the Greeks nor a delay in Persian conquest. The Persians attacked Greek states that stood in their way, the worst of which was the sacking of Athens and the destruction of the Acropolis. The battles of Salamis and Plataea were more significant during the Second Greco-Persian War because they forced Xerxes, the Persian emperor, to abandon his campaign. Thermopylae, according to its admirers, revitalized and rallied the Greeks, giving them the strength for further victories over a powerful force. This reasoning is wrong. During the First Greco-Persian War, the Greeks, led by Athens, defeated the Persian army at the Battle of Marathon. So there is no reason to believe that the Greeks doubted their fighting abilities and needed the heroic exploits of Sparta to inspire them. The battles of Salamina and Plataea, not the Battle of Thermopylae, were the turning points in the Greco-Persian Wars. Images of warriors fighting naked or semi-naked, using only spears and shields, reinforced myths of Spartan valor. We can excuse Zack Snyder's fictionalized depiction of the Battle of Thermopylae, as Spartan legends have persisted in the Western world for centuries. Artistic depictions of warriors in ancient Greek pottery showed them half-naked, leading people of the Middle Ages and modern times to believe that the Spartans fought without protection. In fact, they wore the same armor as any other ancient Greek hoplite regiment of the time. The hoplites were infantry units of Greek citizen soldiers. They wore a bronze helmet. Muscular armor, known as cuirasses, protected the upper body. Sometimes they wore linothorax, a plate armor stitched on linen cloth. They wore cuffs to protect the shin and thigh armor to protect the upper leg. They carried a sword at their belt. These are a far cry from the men in leather underpants seen in 300. In movies and literature, the Spartans are often portrayed as defenders of the Greek cause, rallying the city-states of ancient Greece against invading oppressive Persian forces. To their credit, the Spartans were among the greatest political minds of their time. They formed the Peloponnesian Alliance, creating an unequal alliance with the surrounding Greek city-states. This coalition also included Corinth, Cythera, Melos, Pylos, Mantinea, Ellida, Epidaurus, Boeotia, Lefkes, and Ambracia. Sparta believed that democracies such as Athens would undermine their way of life, which was to enjoy leisure at the expense of slaves, known as ilotes, and leave citizenship limited to a few political elites. As a result, they founded the Peloponnesian League. League members were expected to help each other if one of them was attacked. Sparta was the most powerful state in ancient Greece, so this was a way for them to outsource their fighting. The partnership also ensured that the Spartans didn't have to maintain all types of armies, with the cavalry and navy being run by their allies. Sparta did not join the All-Greek alliance when the Persians invaded Greece in 492 BC, leading to the First Greco-Persian War. During the Second Greco-Persian War, Xerxes began sending messengers not only to Sparta and Athens, but also to other states to outwit the two most powerful city-states. The Spartans knew they had no choice but to fight, or else the status of their fragile Peloponnesian alliance was at stake. Although the Spartans joined the fight against the Persians, this was done in their personal interest, not because of the concept of Greek statehood as it is usually viewed through the lens of modernity. After the Greco-Persian Wars, Athens' dominance increased. More independent kingdoms began to pay tribute to Athens. Athenians began to influence Sparta's allies, and just 10 years after the Third Greco-Persian War, Sparta and Athens clashed. But this is where things get interesting. The Spartans allied with the Persians to defeat the Athenians in the protracted Peloponnesian War. This helped Sparta establish hegemony over Greece. Once you look closely at the conflict, you'll realize that like any other war in the ancient world, alliances and self-interest not nationalism, were behind the decision-making. The Spartans were brilliant politicians, which helped them end Athenian domination. During the Corinthian War, Athens also turned to the Persians for help to push back the Spartans. At that time, there were no permanent allies or enemies. Eventually, Persia was conquered by Alexander, who was from Macedonia, an ally of the Persians against the Greeks during the Greco-Persian Wars. The movie 300 Spartans shows the Spartans as noble warriors fighting for freedom. It portrayed the Persians as tyrants with an army of slaves. Once again, the reality is polar opposite. Slaves, known as helots, built Spartan society. While slaves existed in every Greek society, the treatment of helots by the Spartans was horrific. Helots were Greek slaves from the regions of Laconia and Messenia in the Spartan state. The Spartans enslaved the local population and forced them to perform menial labor, such as construction, fishing, agriculture, animal husbandry, and domestic work for the city dwellers. The Spartan army's goal was not to repel invaders or make significant military conquests. They were trained to suppress the rebellions of the Helots and keep them under control. The Helots also served as auxiliary infantry for the main Spartan army, and 900 Helots died fighting to the death at the Battle of Thermopylae. At the Battle of Plataea, there were 7 Helots for every Spartan soldier in the army. The Persians, on the other hand, paid their workers who built their magnificent cities, such as Persepolis. The Persian army was multinational, with professional soldiers from different parts of Asia. Cyrus, the founder of the Persian Achaemenid Empire, is known for freeing the Jews from Babylonian slavery. Pop culture has distorted our perception of the Spartans. When there was no conflict, the huge labor force of Helots allowed the Spartans to enjoy leisure and relaxation. Men in most Greek city-states returned to farming, fishing, pottery, and stonework when they were not fighting, as was the norm in ancient times. The Spartans focused on raising worthy citizens based on Spartan beliefs, but they extended these benefits only to themselves. When Leonidas talks about free men in the movie 300 Spartans, he means the same slave-owning elite as himself. The Spartans were disciplined people who expanded their power through wise policies rather than military might. They built their wealth on the exploitation of human beings, which horrified contemporary slave-owning societies. If you liked the video, then don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel. There will be a lot of interesting, shocking, and exciting things ahead.